What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Commentary for you. I gave you a couple days to get this right, and really they haven't, so we're going to go through the ratings just a bit here between Darius Leonard, who, if you don't know, is a captain for the Indianapolis Colts, Pro Bowler, All-Pro, led the NFL in tackles, Defensive Rookie of the Year, All-Rookie team. A lot of accolades for this guy, but at the end of the day, defenses are made by players like Darius Leonard. He is a player that an offense will actually plan against, and much like, say, Bob Sanders, you can actually tell a difference when Darius Leonard is not on the field. Now, I know a lot of people compared him to a number of linebackers, but one of the biggest talking points this year has been against Fred Warner. Now, I'm not going to take anything against Fred Warner. I think he is a great linebacker. I actually think he is probably a top 20 linebacker. He, however, is not the type of player that an offense is going to plan against. He's a budding star. He has the capabilities of being an all-pro, but right now, he's just on the fringe of that. So when this gets brought up, and any ratings get brought up, we have this narrative continually from EA. First of all, they've got a handful of people responsible for a large number of ratings. We all understand it is hard to get everything perfect, but I don't like that they create excuses. You know, the excuse that you have updates, the excuse that it's a difficult job, and the excuse that there's limited amount of advanced information in football. I thought football was one of the most technology-rich sports there is. I mean, look at what AWS has been able to do. Just because you can fix it later doesn't mean that it comes out broken. So when you look at these numbers, it's hard for me to understand where they get Fred Warner rating higher than Darius Leonard. Even going back both years. And again, this is not a slight on Fred Warner. I truly believe he should be one of the top 20, maybe 15 linebackers in the game. But whether you're looking at advanced statistics or not, the number of interceptions, the number of sacks, the number of forced fumbles, the number of quarterback hits, the number of solo tackles. The only thing that Fred Warner actually has higher than Darius Leonard is the number of games. And that's what's so shocking about this. What are you taking into account when you're telling me that you're looking at game film? You simply have more film of Fred Warner, so he must be a better player? What are you ignoring? We're not talking about small, defining numbers. We're talking about when you take into consideration less games, a pretty significant number in average tackles per game. You're talking about a significant number of sacks. For some players, a career number of sacks. You're taking a significant number of interceptions down. I mean, from 7 to 1 is significant. Now, the touchdowns are touchdowns. Those, I think, we can all understand from a defensive standpoint are either going to happen or not. There's a variable with that. If Darius Leonard had 3 touchdowns versus Fred Warner's 4 on defensive fumble recoveries or interceptions, to me, that's kind of a number that gets washed out. There's so many intangibles on those plays, I don't know if that's used toward a rating. I went back and I watched some of Fred Warner's film, and to be fair, he is a very intelligent and instinctive football player. He makes a lot of good decisions. He makes a lot of good reads. He is very reactionary in terms of what happens. And to most casual fans, he's probably overlooked a good bit because he doesn't have the same accolades that a player like Darius Leonard does. That doesn't mean that this year he won't have a massive breakout year where he gets the notoriety and fame that he probably deserves as a player. But for right now, I think we can all agree, outside of the hardcore fan or the 49er fan, your average NFL fan, your average NFL consumer, that also means your typical Madden gamer may not know the distinction between a player like Darius Leonard and Fred Warner because they're so used to looking at the higher end, well-respected, well-rewarded player like Darius Leonard as opposed to the player like Fred Warner that doesn't have those same milestones and probably goes under the radar a little bit, which you could take into account as probably a little bit disrespectful for a player that is so good. But that brings me to the conclusion of this concept. This is a win-win situation for EA. If they get player ratings horribly wrong, there are people that like myself, will talk about it. Like you that will talk about it. The players will go tweet about it. And that generates conversation about this game. It gives them marketing. The same reason why some of you don't seem to understand that no matter how poorly I show this game on my channel, I'm still giving them exposure. I still have 1 million people that will watch it any given month. To them, no publicity is bad publicity. They can also easily write this off by saying, we can make it right with updates. So don't worry that we got it wrong now because we can get it right later. It's almost the best of both worlds. They get the coverage now, they get the consideration for later, and keep in mind, later, we've seen this continuously, all they're going to do is pump out a player update or a roster update and say, look at how great these players have become. Look at how well these players have moved. Darius Leonard is up 7 points. Fred Warner is down 4 points. And they'll act as if they made true changes to the game. To me, the bigger talking point has always been that this is what we're still doing in 2020. With all the advanced data, with all the advanced game tracking, with all the stat tracking, with every game, literally every game being able to be went over with a fine-tooth comb from any angle. You've seen the 360 cameras. Why they aren't able to extrapolate true NFL data and generate it into creating a player model and then using that in the game blows my mind. The same as if they constantly dealt with this negative feedback from players, why they haven't went to a company like, say, Pro Football Focus and elected to use their ratings to help improve not only the appearance of their game in saying, hey, we use outside ratings because we know that we had a lot of problems with fans and players, and this makes our game more realistic because we're falling back on a respected name in the industry. But it's almost as if EA is content with just treading water. They want to have 2 or 3 people create these ratings. They want to have arguments with players, fans, and the community, when they could very easily take the weight and burden off those individuals in their game, provide a more reliable resource for their game to be realistic in the eyes of their fans and players, and then move forward with having these individuals work on other aspects of the game that may truly matter, like franchise mode. But to me, the reality is, even if they did that, we all know these ratings in this game are so contrived and are so inaccurate and are so skewed and don't matter that even if they were to pull information over from a third party, it's truly not going to change how the player reacts or acts on the field. So to me, that's the whole issue that we have here. This is just another situation where we should be talking about improvements to the game. We should be talking about what's making the game better. But EA has instead found a way to have us talk about meaningless, insignificant aspects of its game, like what numeric value a player got for a certain skill. And they know that by doing this, they get every benefit of actually adding something that tangibly improves the game to it from a social media standpoint without actually putting in the effort. And that, to me, in a nutshell, is EA. How can we get the reaction we want with the least effort possible? And for the past number of years, that reaction has been through just bad player ratings. Having one person take the brunt and a commitment to fix it when the game is released. And it should not be that way. We should be talking about true, meaningful changes that as gamers make this game more enjoyable for us. Not looking at stats on a screen and trying to understand how EA could rate one player better than another when literally every single stat that is meaningful to the NFL level, whether you look at per season or per game, has one player favored over another, yet we're trying to discern how one individual at EA could somehow make this out to be Fred Warner is a better player than Darius Leonard. Love to know your guys' thoughts on this. Appreciate you checking it out. You know I will be back. Never to talk about these topics again, because I literally hate this. But I've got tons of horrible Madden gameplay that you guys have sent to me for me to utilize. So, in the week, with more commentary.